Good morning. Welcome to the biochemistry of cancer class. So this biochemistry of cancer lasts for about 4 classes, out of which this is the second class. So basic information about cancer, development of cancer, and what happens when we develop cancer inside the body, and how best we can understand the process of development of cancer, that is carcinogenesis, and how best we can prevent it, how best we can get the treatment from various modalities. All these things will be covered in this. Of course, everything will be available to all of you through your books, but all said and done from the side of teacher. This is a small help for you to understand the process of carcinogenesis. We know pretty well about the cancer prevention and antioxidants. And the antioxidants will scavenge the free radicals and they will detoxify the carcinogens. And you know pretty well vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin C. These are the best vitamins. And vitamin C spares all the other vitamin A and E. And vegetables and fruits contains the rich amounts of antioxidants. Anti-mutagens are substances which interfere with the tumor promotion. So there are some tumor promoting agents inside the cell. Everything will be present inside the cell. Cancer will not come from heavens. It's not a bolt from the blue. So just like a small two-wheeler, there will be a brake, there will be a pedal, everything will be there. There will be a stand inside the same bicycle. So we have to operate it in a particular sequence. If we go on pedaling fast and fast, everybody will hit against each other and they will fall down, isn't it? That will lead to dangerous accident. If we coordinate the brake and the pedal and our movements on the road, we will be safe. We will reach the safe destination, isn't it? So vitamin A and carotenoids are shown to have reverse action on precancerous conditions. Vitamin E acts as an antioxidant. They prevent the damage made by the free radicals. That is the formation of superoxides in the body. And vitamin C prevents the production of new cancer cases in aniline workers. The workers in aniline industries, dyes. The vitamin C is proved to be having very good control on prevention of cancer. Then curcumin, that is turmeric. You know, the turmeric contains curcumin, so it prevents mutations. And fiber contained in the diet, soft fiber, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, all these things have a beneficial effect to decrease the colon cancers. That's why when we migrate to the foreign countries, we don't eat anything fiber there. We eat everything ready-made. And the people living there for 3 to 5 years will develop colonic cancers and come back to India to die peacefully on the Indian continent, Mother India. Flavonoids. The flavonoids possess anti-mutagenic properties. And these flavonoids are abundantly present in the thick coat over lemon, orange, bataiva, all these fruits. They will be containing oil-containing glands. And these oil-containing glands will be having flavonoids. And we have to know to slowly bite a small area of the thick rind of the papaya, of bataiva, orange, all these things. But we simply peel it off and throw it away. That is the foolish act. But once we came to know about this importance of flavonoids, they will prevent the mutations. And phenolic compounds, such things are found in grape seeds, strawberries, walnuts. These all are found to be anti-mutagenic. Now we eat grapes, seedless grapes only we like. We don't take grape seeds. No fool will chew away the grape seeds along with grapes. the happiness of taking a sweet grape will be vanished if we chew that grape seed in between our two molar teeth. But all said and done, the phenolic compounds present in the grape seeds, strawberries, and walnuts, they all will help. They are found to be anti-mutagenic. So the PET scan is an example. The activity of heart will be shown in this. A normal heart will have that activity, and the tracer in the bladder will be found. Lung cancer will be found in the lung areas. So these PET scan will show the increased activity of the cancer cells in that areas. So if the areas consume a lot of carbohydrate, so increased activity is going on there, and that increased activity can become an example for cancer. And cancer in the lymph nodes, and the cancer in the breast. Here, the normal right breast is there with an implant. The people will have a small size of breast is not a happy thing for some of the ladies who are very much interested in their cosmetic appearance and the cosmetic feel. So they will go for an implant inside the breast. So they will get an implant inside the breast. That's an injection for which they shell down 1 lakh rupees, and their breast size will be popped up. And the implant here also is there, and the cancer in the breast is there, added on the surface of the implant. So the implants are not producing cancer, but the cancer took place in the breast of that patient. That is the bad luck. So the categories of DNA modifications should be known to us. Types of genes involved in cancer are oncogenes, tumor suppressor genes, and stability genes. 3 types of genes are known to us. So the oncogenes are the genes capable of causing cancer. 2 people, Michael Bishop and Harold Warmus. These are the 2 people. Michael Bishop is an old man born in 1936, and after 3 years, Harold Warmus was born. Both of them are still living. They shared the Nobel Prize in 1989, and this Harold Warmus is an youngster who gave a lot of impetus to Michael Bishop. This Harold Warmus is a piano instrument. He's mad about the piano instrument. So he was happy-go-lucky fellow. So Michael Bishop was serious fellow. That's why he became so old. It's not so easy. Both of them worked a lot on oncogene research. That's why their work was identified by the Nobel Prize Committee, and they were combinedly awarded Nobel Prize in 1986 for their pioneering work on oncogene research. So a normal cell will be there with a proto-oncogene. Proto-oncogene is a part and parcel of a normal cell. Nothing is problem with proto-oncogene. I'll give one example. When a small child is born into a house, the people start praising him. Na bangaru konda, na veddi konda, na muddula gunna, na pasidi kona. Like that, so many things they will give, adjectives they will give, and everybody will be happy to see a small child. And slowly he goes up. The proto-oncogene who is muddula kona, bangaru konda, veddi konda in the house will slowly get activated by cancer-causing agents, and their DNA will get modified, and the proto-oncogene will get into an activated oncogene. Then the trouble starts in the house. So whatever things he does in the house or outside the house, it will be commented, and the people will be coming and giving complaint in the house, and it will be a headache. That fellow will be a headache to the father and mother and the other people in the house. We are seeing a lot of cinemas on that in recent days. So the DNA will be activated by the cancer-causing agents, and the proto-oncogene will be modified into activated oncogene, and that presence of activated oncogene inside the normal cell will make the cell getting converted into cancer cell. So oncogenic viruses. So oncogenic viruses is most important for your USMLE examination, and it's very easy if we have this knowledge on fingertips. Will definitely gain directly good marks in the USMLE exams. Oncogenic viruses contain either DNA or RNA as their genome. Any one, either DNA or RNA, will be there as a genome in oncogenic viruses. So the integration of viral genes into the host DNA will overrule the regulatory checkups. Until then, it used to have a good regulatory checks and balances in the cellular mechanisms. And when once the viral genes integrate into the host DNA, then the regulatory checks will be lost. It will be going mad. It will be running amok. And the balance of cellular mechanisms will be damaged. This is known as transformation. So we have certain viruses, and the Epstein-Barr virus is abbreviated as EBV. Until we know it definitely, we have to pronounce it as Epstein-Barr virus, EBV. So it's associated with cancers like Burkitt's lymphoma, nasopharyngeal carcinomas. So DNA will be developing into nasopharyngeal carcinoma, the tip of the upper thigh or second thigh. They will be having a growth, small growth will be there that will be frequently bleeding. So this bleeding will be a continuous headache for the patient. So there is a lot of bleeding from the nose. Epistaxis, we call it as epistaxis. For small reasons of sneezing and rubbing the nose, they will have a lot of blood loss from the nostrils. That's what is known as epistaxis. So if we go inside the nose and the nasal cavity and examine with a fiber optic endoscopy, then we may be able to localize a small tumor in the choana. And this may lead to cancers in elderly age groups. All said and done, the small children will escape the development of cancers, but as we live longer, we have to face the drama of cancers. So remember, Epstein-Barr viruses, abbreviated as EBV, will lead to Burkitt's lymphoma and nasopharyngeal carcinoma. I told you about the nasopharyngeal carcinoma, and Burkitt's lymphoma is a big tumor mass affecting the retina, eyeball, total eyeball and the cheek, and the baby will have a big tumor at present at the birth also. Slowly when the child retains 1 year or 2 years of life, the Burkitt's lymphoma will get enlarged and occupy the entire face, half of the face first, and then the entire face will be swollen up. The disfigurement will be rampant. Everybody can just say, oh, how is that face disfigured? And the child will have a lot of problems for taking breath and viewing the objects. All the things will be there. There will be bleeding, there will be spread. All these things will be there. So the second thing is human papilloma virus, HPV. The human papilloma virus is rampantly present in uterine and cervical cancers. So there will be papilloma growth, papillomatous growth on the labia minora, labia majora of women that will be causing a lot of distress for them. Not only the personal problems, but the problems pertaining to the external surface of the skin will be faced by them. And hepatitis B virus is abbreviated as HBV, and that is known to cause hepatoma, primary hepatic cell carcinoma, HCC. So hepatitis B virus is known to cause hepatoma. That's why by all means we are trying to prevent this hepatitis by giving 3 doses of hepatitis B to all the people, especially in this medical profession. We are prone to get this because we are exposed more than the other people get exposed in their life. That's why all the people working in health areas are given hepatitis B vaccine at 1 month intervals for 3 times, and then booster dose after 1 year. This will prevent the development of hepatoma, for which we don't have any treatment. Even though we are ready to spend the millions of rupees at that stage of getting hepatoma, primary hepatic cell carcinoma, we are not going to get saved. 99.99% of all the people exposed to hepatitis B virus will get hepatoma. So we have to take all the preventive steps. It is in our hands. He is the great man, Renato Dalbecco. He got Nobel Prize in 1975. He was born in 1940. The transfer of viral genes to the cell is mediated by one enzyme, reverse transcriptase. That is the thing that was identified by him, Renato Dalbecco. He is single-handedly, he bagged the Nobel Prize in 1975. So this is RNA-dependent DNA polymerase. That is the full name, basing on the activity, RNA-dependent DNA polymerase, or simply reverse transcriptase is the name given to this RNA-dependent DNA polymerase. This replicates the viral genome. The RNA will be injected into DNA, and then it's incorporated in the host genome as a whole. So the virus will occupy the entire genome of the host human being. So viral DNA will come and attaches the host DNA. Viral RNA will come and attach itself into host DNA, either RNA or DNA, anything. So the strand transfer will take place, and the DNA repair will take place, and virus will be integrated thoroughly inside the host DNA. So viruses and cancer. So viruses promoting human cancer include DNA viruses and retroviruses. Retroviruses are type of RNA viruses. So Epstein-Barr virus, as we just read it out, Burkitt's lymphoma. So that is connected with the face. A huge tumor will be there. We got a case from tribal area, and the management spent a lot of money for cancer surgery and radiotherapy for that child. And we kept the child for more than 8 months in our hospital. And finally, for radiotherapy, that child was sent to Mahatma Gandhi Cancer Institute. Of course, with the humanitarian values, they took up the case and took a lot of work, but all said and done. The parents of the child, they never wanted to stay back with the child for a number of months like that. So they finally went away without any knowledge. So Epstein-Barr virus creates Burkitt's lymphoma. Human papilloma virus causes cervical cancer. So the cervix of uterus will be subjected to development of cervical cancer as the woman is exposed to multiple sexual practices with multiple sexual members, or the same husband who is not having a good hygiene, subpreputial hygiene may not be maintained by most of the men, and this may lead to the cervical cancer development in the partner. So unnecessarily, for no fault of her, she will develop the cervical cancer because of the bad subpreputial hygiene of the husband. So human papilloma virus is a problem, and that's why nowadays for most of the unmarried girls below the 25 years and most of the women beyond 40 years, the government is giving the human papilloma virus vaccine. So if they are given the doses of human papilloma virus vaccine, they will not get the chances of getting cervical cancer when they get married, and for the married people after 45 years. So this is human papilloma virus leading to cervical cancer. And once the cervical cancer comes, even though it is carcinoma in situ, we are not sure of the good side of the cancer. So type 1, type 2A, type 2B, type 3, type 4A, 4B, all these things are very dangerous. We can do obviously nothing except for going for a scrupulously planned radiotherapy, chemotherapy, all these things, and brachytherapy. After all these things, even though the patient is willing to undergo all these things, the people inside the house may not be able to bring the patient all the way from the house to the cancer hospital. Even though the cancer hospitals are free to give the help, they will not be able to take this. So human papilloma virus is such a grave virus that will lead to cancer, cervical cancer in the woman, and that can be prevented by the injections if we take before marriage or even after 40 years of age. This may be somewhat useful. Hepatitis B virus, I told you, that will create liver cancer, and if we take the hepatitis B vaccine, 3 doses at 1 month intervals, and again at 1 year later booster dose, we may not be able to get liver cancer. And human T cell lymphotrophic virus, that will cause adult T cell leukemia, and Kaposi sarcoma that is associated with herpes virus. So if the herpes virus affects the body, the Kaposi sarcoma will be the resultant cancer in the tissues of the human body, in the leg, in the lung. So this Kaposi sarcoma, if it appears in the lung, nothing can be done much for a case of herpes virus. So in 1910, Patton Roos, he found the first retrovirus in chickens' filtered sarcoma. The chickens used to get sarcoma, a pendulous growth under the neck. So from this sac, they extracted and he infiltrated that chicken's sarcoma, and he got the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine in 1966. So some 56 years after the invention, he was declared eligible to get the Nobel Prize. So initially he found it out, but nobody took notice of it. So just ignored his research. And finally, when at a later date in 1966, when some of the youngsters came and noticed this in the history of medicine, so they continued his work and established that the retrovirus in chickens, filtered sarcoma, can induce cancer. Then he was considered for Nobel Prize along with that young man. So DNA tumor viruses. Viruses can contribute to cancer by inserting their DNA into the chromosome in the host cell. So the insertion of the virus DNA directly into the proto-oncogene will mutate the gene into oncogene. So proto-oncogene is a normal one. It will be conducting the normal activities, not at all dangerous. Just like a small child growing in the house, everybody will be happy with the child. But slowly when the child goes into pell-mell by other influences, it will convert into an oncogene, so resulting in a tumor cell. So remember, viruses can contribute to cancer by inserting their DNA into chromosome in the host cell. So insertion of virus DNA directly into proto-oncogene, which is a normal gene, good gene, when once the virus DNA is directly introduced into proto-oncogene, the proto-oncogene will get mutated into oncogene, resulting in the tumor cell. So mechanism of chemical carcinogenesis also we have to consider here. Procarcinogen will be converted into proximate carcinogen, and ultimately it will be converted into carcinogen. So bind covalently to macromolecules that is DNA and RNA and other proteins in the cell. And carcinogens are electrophiles. So they are deficient in electrons. That's why wherever there are rich in electrons, it will be bind to that easily. So there is not much of effort is needed for that. So they will readily attack the nucleophilic groups of DNA. So proto-oncogenes are activated to oncogenes by various mechanisms. There are 5 mechanisms. That is promoter insertion. Second one is enhancer insertion. Third one is chromosomal translocation. Fourth one is gene amplification. And the last one is point mutation. So these are the 5 things we have to remember. These are the 5 mechanisms. They are described. The proto-oncogenes are activated to oncogenes by all these 5 mechanisms. Promoter insertion, enhancer insertion, chromosomal translocation, gene amplification, and point mutation. So this is most important figure. We have benzopyrene. The benzopyrene is a cancer-inducing drug, a chemical carcinogen that is known as initiator. Then once the initiator falls on the skin, nothing happens, no tumor develops. If the initiator benzopyrene, over which a promoter cotton oil is applied and rubbed, then it creates tumors over some time. So initiator benzopyrene needs the presence of a promoter cotton oil. Then only it will create tumors, otherwise no tumor business. Even if the promoter cotton oil is there, and after some many years initiator benzopyrene falls on that, nothing will be there. The time that takes is most important. So no tumor will be there. So everything will be closely presenting. Initiator should be there, benzopyrene, and promoter cotton oil, both should be present. Then only the tumors will be taking place. A variety of compounds like phenobarbital and saccharin, they can act as promoters. That's why we don't want to take anything. The artificial sweetening agents, saccharin is added. So nowadays, in good olden days, the people, diabetic people, whenever they wanted to take happy sweet function in the house, they used to have saccharin in the place of sugar. Nowadays, when we know that the saccharin act as a promoter sometimes, so we are avoiding saccharin and we are taking the other sweetening agents, which are not so much dangerous like saccharin. So phenobarbital is an anticonvulsant drug. So whenever a patient is having convulsions, fits, so we used to put him on phenobarbital, and the phenobarbital will act as a promoter for some cancer-producing agents. So saccharin as a whole is avoided nowadays. So active agent of cotton oil is a mixture of pharbol esters. The pharbol esters is a big chemistry in organic chemistry. So we got the chance of getting the exposure to reading the pharbol esters, the knowledge of pharbol esters in our organic chemistry. But it is sufficient for you to know that the cotton oil is a mixture of pharbol esters and that will induce the cancer. So enhancer insertion is the second process. So insertion of a viral cDNA down the stream of oncogene. So Mike gene is inactive. If the Mike gene, the provirus is activated, the Mike acts as a DNA binding protein and alters the gene expression. So the gene translocation, reciprocal translocation in Burkitt's lymphoma. So translocation is from short arm of chromosome 8 to short arm of chromosome 14. And in reverse process, translocation occurs from short arm of chromosome 14 to chromosome 8. This is known as reciprocal translocation that leads to Burkitt's lymphoma. So translocated piece from chromosome 8 contains Mike gene, which is placed next to gene transcribing heavy chain of immunoglobulins. So that becomes activated. And then gene amplification. So amplification of genes causing increased expression into many folds. So amplification of certain genes are found in some tumors. It can be induced by anti-cancer drugs like and the cause the drug resistance also. For example, treatment with methotrexate. Methotrexate is a immunosuppressant drug, and this immunosuppressant drug can be used as an anti-cancer drug in choriocarcinomas in certain cancers, and sometimes they may induce resistance, drug resistance also, which will cause a problem for cancer treatment. So point mutations. So CRAS gene. So CRAS gene with the P21. So mutation at the 12th position will be leading to CRAS mutation, and loss of GTPase activity will be there. And once the GTPase activity is lost, the overstimulation of the adenylyl cyclase will take place, and that will lead to the cancer. So this is the proto-oncogene. So proto-oncogene will be incorporated to DNA, and then proto-oncogene moves from normal location to a different location on the chromosome, and excessive amount of normal protein, that is the ultimate picture of translocation. Polypeptide growth factors are mitogenic. So growth factors are polypeptide substances. So they are secreted from different cells which cause mitosis. The mitosis is very essential for the growth, isn't it? So the growth factors are needed. So growth factors are directly connected with mitosis, that is growth. So growth factors may be endocrine, paracrine, autocrine. So growth factors act on mitosis via transmembrane signal transduction. So growth factors are EGF. The source is mouse salivary glands. The function is to stimulate the growth of many epidermal and epithelial cells. And then erythropoietin. So the source is kidney, and that will be secreted in the urine. As long as the erythropoietin is secreted by the kidney, as long as the kidney can synthesize erythropoietin, there will be production of RBC inside the body. If the erythropoietin is not getting secreted by the kidney, there will be no RBC production in the bone marrow. Ultimately, we may be endangered with anemia. So suppression will be there. Bone marrow suppression will lead to anemia. And that's why the people suffering for long, lengthy period of time with uncontrolled diabetes. Mind you, it is uncontrolled diabetes that's dangerous. Not a controlled diabetes with very good periodical checkup and very good control over diet and exercise and treatment. The people will not unnecessarily go so easily for kidney failure. If they ignore diet, if they ignore the consultation given by the doctors, if they ignore the exercise, then they will go for uncontrolled diabetic state, and the people suffering with uncontrolled diabetes will go into kidney failure, renal failure, we call it, isn't it? So then the erythropoietin will not be so easily produced by the kidney, because the kidney is in failure. So the erythropoiesis will be deranged in that. So these are all the very useful things that may be acting in the body as the growth factors. So EGF is a mouse salivary gland, simulates the growth of many epidermal and epithelial cells. The erythropoietin is present in the kidney. So it's very useful for the development of healthy erythropoietic cells. And IGF-1 and IGF-2 are present in the serum. So sulfates are incorporated into the cartilage. And in excess of the sulfates incorporated into the cartilage, they'll become mitogenic for chondrocytes and exert insulin-like effects on many cells normally. So they are good. If something is excess, everything excess is dangerous. Transforming the growth factor alpha, tumor cells and placenta. It's just similar to TGF. And TGF-B is there, that is producing platelets and placenta. So the inhibition of fibroblasts will take place. And platelet-derived growth factor, will be from platelets only. So injecting platelets on chronic wounds will accelerate the wound healing. That's why platelet therapy is very much utilized for treating the chronic ulcers like burns. So when somebody is having acid burns or red burns or dry burns, all these people will be having so much of damage to the skin, and they'll be going into chronic ulcers. And these chronic ulcers, what all that we try to do by dressing and all these things, antiseptic dressings and all, they may not yield good results. Finally, when we expose them to the platelet therapy, platelet-derived growth factor help them, and accelerated wound healing take place, and they will have a normal skin. And nerve growth factor is one that will be exercising in the submaxillary gland, and it will produce the growth of sensory neurons in the submaxillary gland. So the good senses, superficial senses on the submaxillary areas, on the cheeks. So cheeks are so sensitive, isn't it? All the sensory neurons produced from the nerve growth factors. So they are useful. So the growth factors are useful. Everything in excess is dangerous. So familiar human growth factors, EGF, submaxillary gland, kidney and duodenal gland, principal sources. And EPO from kidney, EGF from placenta, IFN gamma, activated TH1 and NK cells. So IGF, placenta, primarily liver and the plasma, and then NGF, neuronal cells and submaxillary glands, PDGF, platelets and endothelial cells and placenta, tumor cells, TGF alpha and TGF beta. So TGF alpha, tumor cells, transforming cell, placenta, TGF beta is activated TH1 cells, T helper cells, TH1 cells, yes, T helper cells, and the natural killer cells, NK cells. VEGF is smooth muscle tumor cells, endothelial cells. So mechanism of action of growth factor is, so they will be binding the membrane receptor, and tyrosine kinase activation takes place that will lead to intracellular related protein phosphorylation, and that will finally lead to intranuclear transcription factor activation, and the genetic transcription will take place. And this may, in other side, will go on to produce second messenger, and the second messenger will start bombarding the protein kinase, lead to activation, and then that will go into intracellular related protein phosphorylation, which will lead to intranuclear transcription factor activation, that will ultimately lead to genetic transcription. And the binding intracellular receptor will lead to growth factor receptor compounds activation related gene, and that will go to genetic transcription. So these are all the mechanism of activations of growth factors. So tumor suppressor genes also will be there. Genes which prevents the causation of cancer are known as tumor suppressor genes, just like the brakes that are available on the handlebar of a two-wheeler. So there are the genes which suppress the causation of cancer. They are known as tumor suppressor genes. So these are sometimes called as recessive oncogenes. This is the other name for tumor suppressor gene, recessive oncogenes or anti-oncogenes. So oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes, the difference. Oncogenes cause mutation in one of the allele is sufficient. The gain of function of a protein that signals the cell division is the main mechanism of oncogenes. And mutation in somatic cells, which is not inherited. And some tissues are preferred for the work of oncogenes. Whereas the tumor suppressor genes, mutation will be in both the alleles. And loss of function of a protein will be taking place. So unless otherwise the mutation is present in both the alleles, the tumor suppressor gene cannot act. So the loss of function of a protein will take place with that. And mutation in germ cells is inherited like testicular cells. Strong tissue preference will be there. Only for certain areas only they are attached. So tumor suppressor gene is known as anti-oncogene. It's a gene whose protein products inhibit cell division. Thereby it prevents the uncontrolled cell growth. So they will not allow the uncontrolled cell growth that may unnecessarily lead to cancer. So the tumor suppressor gene or anti-oncogene is a friend of us. So this protein, the protein products from anti-oncogene inhibit the cell division, thereby it prevents the cancer production. So tumor suppressor genes act like a brake on the pedal. So we have a pedal, we may speedily pedaling the bicycle, and at the same time the brakes will control the speed, and thereby the accidents will not be taking place. So tumor suppressor genes act like a brake pedal. So growth factors, they will be attached to the receptor, and there will be signaling enzymes, and they will be lead to transcription factors from the DNA, and cell proliferation will take place. So that is the normal action of these growth factors and through the receptors. Whereas the tumor suppressor genes will come in the middle, and they will inhibit at all stages, at the receptor binding stage, at the signaling enzyme stage, and at the transcription factors acting on DNA stage. Anywhere, a small break, a slow break, a fast break, sudden break. So there are three types of breaks. All the three breaks are helpful. Remember, tumor suppressor gene proteins are always good friends of us. So they will inhibit at the receptor binding stage. They will inhibit at the signaling enzyme stage. They will inhibit the transcription factors acting on the DNA stage. Ultimately, stopping the cell proliferation. So this you have to remember for your lifetime. RB gene, retinoblastoma gene, refers to the retinoblastoma. So the major function of RB gene is the regulation of cell cycle procession. You know pretty well about the cell cycle finally ending up in apoptosis. The cell cycle will not end up in apoptosis, then the cells will go on living forever, isn't it? So that's not needed. And all the people that are born on this earth should die one day or other. Man is not immortal. Man is mortal. At one stage, say 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, all depends upon the stability and integrity of the cell. So the major function of RB gene is the regulation of cell cycle procession. So at a G3, G1 phase, RB protein will act on E, 2F phase, and at S phase, RB protein with the P12 and 21, and E, 2F phase, DNA and mRNA stage. So hereditary retinoblastoma, we should have two alleles, RB plus RB minus. And RB plus and minus somatic mutation. The somatic retinal cell will undergo homozygous cell gives rise to tumors in the retina. And sometimes a sporadic retinoblastoma will be there without a homozygous cell. So the somatic cell, retinal cell, the first somatic mutation, and finally in the second somatic mutation, the homozygous cell gives rise to tumors in the retina, retinoblastoma. A P53 gene is there, the P53 protein. It will be attached to the acidic region of the chromosome. The core region will be there. At one side, acidic region will be there. The other side, basic region will be there. A P53 gene encodes the protein with molecular weight of 53. That's why the number is given to identify that protein by name, P53 gene. So coding the restrained protein relating to cell cycle control is most important. When tumor suppressive gene is deleted and mutated, there is an induced occurrence of tumors. So RB gene and P53 gene are most important things that should be remembered by you as long as you are continuing your practice as a doctor. So biological function of P53 protein is suppressing cell cycle. That is the biological function. Suppressing the transformation and transformation function of some oncogenes. So oncogenes will be always there waiting to take their chance. But the biological function of P53 protein is they will be suppressing the transformation function of some oncogenes, awaiting the chance. And they will be monitoring the cell DNA damage. And they will induce the cell apoptosis, thereby unnecessary multiplication of the cells will not take place at any stage of the life. So these are the 4 things you have to remember for your lifetime. Whenever a patient comes to you, you should be able to slowly sit by the side of them and should be able to drive this knowledge into their brain so that they will stop worrying about their cancer. So metastasis is one important thing that you have to note down. The neoplastic cell will undergo degradation of the basement membrane, and the interaction with the ECM and degradation of ECM will take place. The invasion of blood vessels will take place, or the neoplastic cell will directly induce angiogenesis. New blood vessels will be forming on the neoplastic cell growth mass. So anything can carry on the metastatic spread of the cancer cells. So mutation inactivates the tumor suppressor gene. That is the most important thing we have to remember. And the cells will proliferate without any control. And the mutation inactivates the DNA repair gene also. So there is cell proliferation, there is no DNA repair gene. So all harm can cause harm to the cell. Mutation of proto-oncogene creates an oncogene, and mutation inactivates the several more tumor suppressor genes, and all these things put together lead to the development of cancer. So cells are born and they live for a given period of time and then die. That is known as apoptosis. This is physiological cell death. That is known as cell suicide, and this will delete the cell from the body, and this is known as cell programmed cell death in the body. And we'll go to some other place. This we need not tell now. Yes. So embryonic cell is totipotent. It will be having so many antigens expressed by them. And there will be functional gene present inside the embryonic cell. The embryonic antigens will be expressed by the embryonic cell when it is in the stage of embryo. But when once it becomes normal adult cell, all the embryonic antigen expression will be stopped. It will not take on that purpose. So only the gene is repressed. So antigens are not expressed in a normal adult cell. But sometimes, due to bad luck, the embryonal antigen will be re-expressed. This is known as tumor antigen. So the gene will be repressed. That will lead to the change of malignancy. So this is known as oncofetal antigen. So we have to remember the oncofetal antigen that is present in the embryonic cell is going into silence when the embryonic cell goes into normal adult cell. And finally, when once the embryonal antigen is re-expressed as a tumor antigen in the adult stage, then the gene will be de-repressed and it will result in a malignant cell. This you have to remember. With this diagram, you may be able to explain the oncofetal antigen and progress into then tumor markers. They are overexpressed by the malignant cell. They are usually normal cellular constituents. Usually they are normal. They are present at normal or very low level in the blood of healthy persons all the time. So they are also called tumor index substances. Sometimes the tumor marker cells will be given as a short note as tumor index substances. You need not get unnecessarily panicked by this. The same thing is tumor marker, tumor index substance. Both are same. So they are the factors released from the tumor cells. They could be detected in the blood and therefore indicate the presence of tumor in the body. So whenever a dog entered our house and slept on our bed, 2 or 3 days later when we come and we smell the bed, if we smell that dog smell, or if a cat, it can enter through the ventilator and can sleep nicely when we are not there in the house. So we can sniff the smell of the rat or cat or anything. So these are known as tumor index substances. Just like that, this is the similar analogy with that. I was trying to drive the message into your minds. So they are the factors released from the tumor cells. The tumor index substances or tumor markers are the factors released from the tumor cell, which could be detected in the blood and therefore indicate the presence of tumor inside the body. So applications of cancer biomarkers they are very useful for screening. If a particular type of tumor marker is seen, we can say that a particular type of tumor may be existing inside the body. And suppose already we know that the particular fellow is suffering with the cancer. So the response to the therapeutics can be known by expressing the tumor markers. And if already is suffering with cancer, we know the prognosis of the cancer. So how far he is responding, how far he is nicely coming down with the treatment. And differential diagnosis, what type of cancer ultimately is suffering, we can know. The risk assessment can be known by the presence of the amount of tumor markers. Monitoring the progression is always there, and the therapeutic agents, how best they are working on the body. If they are giving good response, the tumor markers will be getting less and less. So they are useful in screening, they are useful in